Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 433. It's made possible this week by our sponsors, NomNom, Electric, and Capital One. My name is Stephen Hackett, and I'm joined by Mr. Mike Hurley.
Hello.
Hello.
What were you? Was that a British accent?
No, I was just saying hello. Like, hello.
But it didn't sound like it was. It just didn't sound like you. It had like a different effect to it. Anyway,
It was me.
and I have the pleasure of introducing Federico Viticci.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, fellow kids. How are you?
Howdy doody. Good. I need passion, so I want the passionate ones to go fill out.
Oh, not from us. Okay.
No,
right.
Not today. Please go to the link in the show notes and fill out the Do the Passionate Ones Know You form. I will make this the last reminder, so before our next episode, I will close off. Yes, this is a threat. I will close the submission. So this is for a future quizzes segment. Please, if you could go and fill out the Do the Passionate Ones Know You form. You are trying to guess things that Stephen and Federico like or don't like in their lives, and I will use this as a future game of the quizzes, the first quizzes of 2023. So please go fill this out before our next episode. Thank you very much.
We had some feedback from listener Jose about the survey and the quizzes and the whole thing, because you are going to reset the scores this year, right? And they suggested that we do seasons and we can keep up with the seasons. And so in the 2022 season, I had X number of points, Federico had X number of points, and then that kind of gets stored historically somewhere, and then we can keep track over time.
Yeah, it's just the plan. I mean, it's not like every year it's like erased from our memories. Like, I will know that Stephen won the first year.
Yeah, but I think we need to know the scores.
Right.
I think the numbers are important.
There are many tracking websites that will all have this information, as well as my own spreadsheet, which will have this information. Do not fear.
Is it tracked on websites?
Yeah. Jason of Wikipedia made Quizzipedia, right?
That's right. My bad. I'm sorry. I want to talk about my Mac Mini. We're going to...
Okay. Why? Any particular reason?
Well, we'll find out later in the show if Apple, released a new one or not. No way of knowing right now. But the new one starts at $599, which is pretty sweet. And I've got a Mac Mini in active service. It is a base model from 2018, when they went space gray and it got good. And it is like a DVD player and it runs Homebridge. But it's my last Intel Mac in service. And I was like, at some point I'm going to replace it. I was like, maybe this is the time. But it runs Homebridge and I'm afraid to touch it. And you guys are making fun of me for this because you think Homebridge is really fragile. Doesn't make any sense to me. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I don't understand the Homebridge Home Assistant lifestyle. I feel like you're just signing yourself up for a future problem. That's how I approach these things. Like, smart home stuff is already complicated enough. I just feel like you're only setting yourself up for a failure. But what else is running on that Mac Mini?
It runs Time Machine backups, like the server component for it, for a couple laptops in the house. And it runs, what else is it? It runs Plex, which I don't really have anything in. For a minute during the pandemic, I thought I would get into Plex, and I just didn't because I don't steal media anymore. So I don't even know what I'd put in it.
You don't have to steal the media. You can just
but that's what most people do. You think Casey's buying all that stuff he has in his Plex library?
No, I know he's not. I know I know he's not, because there's things on there money can't buy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't run a ton, but it's at some point I'm just thinking about doing it. And a quick Google search while I was talking does show it seems like it's pretty easy to move in between. But the reason I use Homebridge I've talked about this, is to get my Ring and my home security system, which has like its own app, which is terrible, to bring that into HomeKit. And so I really like having Homebridge. I find it very useful to have that stuff in HomeKit, but I'm also a little afraid of it.
I had a Homebridge set up here at the studio for a while, and then just one day, the Homebridge app just said that the server clock was wrong, and that was the end of it.
What were you running it on?
A Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, I've found it to be less reliable than running it on a Mac Mini, but that doesn't mean that on a Mac it's perfect. It's just I've had a better experience running Homebridge like continuously in the background on macOS than on a Raspberry Pi. But
Yeah, I
it's
wanted
still not
something
ideal.
low energy, low overhead. Which is why I went the Raspberry Pi route. But just ultimately, it just those things just feel like they're gonna break eventually. So like my kind of feeling with smart home stuff is, I don't want to get used to something and then it not work anymore. So I try and stay official and use like, if I'm, try and get as much stuff HomeKit as possible or get used to using an app, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I have a Ring security thing here at the studio. I just use the Ring app. Like the Ring app is fine. Like, and that's just it. Because I don't want to get used to it all being in HomeKit and then it just doesn't work anymore and then I'll get annoyed. So like I just try and like minimize my potential future frustration. Because all of these things, like, it only takes like one change on Ringside and it either might not work anymore or might not work for a period of time until the community fixes it. And like if I have something, like I find a piece of equipment that's a little bit more esoteric and then you know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I feel about these things. And so, look, we already seen it's hard enough for Apple to keep HomeKit the way that they want it to be. You know what I mean? Like, let alone something like Homebridge.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I run it on my Mac Mini because I already had that running, right?
Yeah.
But I like having the stuff there really for automation more than anything else. Like when I leave the house, I get a little notification like, "Hey, did you arm your security system?" And it's like some sort of like generic app that then gets branded by my security company at the house, right? Like they don't have any control over it, and it doesn't offer any of that stuff. So it is nice. So maybe I'll take this on. It looks like, I'll put a link in the show notes, how to back up and restore. So maybe it's not too bad.
Yeah, you let us know how that goes for you.
Will do. I don't know if I don't think I'm upgrading the Mini at this point, but if I do at some point in the future, I will have to contend with this. This episode of Connected is made possible by Nom Nom. Don't settle when it comes to your pup's health. Make the switch to fresh food made with real ingredients and backed by science. That's Nom Nom. They deliver fresh dog food with every portion personalized for your dog's needs so you can bring out their best. Nom Nom's made with real whole food you can see and recognize without any additives or fillers that contribute to things like bloating and low energy. That's because Nom Nom uses the latest science and insights to make real, good food for dogs. Their nutrient-packed recipes are crafted by the board-certified veterinary nutritionist they work with, and they make fresh dog food shipped free to your door. Nom Nom's already delivered more than 40 million meals to good dogs like yours, inspiring millions of clean bowls and tail wags. I know our dog, we've had some issues with her food over the years, and we finally got it right. And it's so important to us because she's happier and healthier once we got her diet right. And our dog is like another kid in our house. Super important to get this right for your pet. And Nom Nom is a no-brainer when it comes to this because they have a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom. Go right now for 50% off your no-risk 2-week trial at trynom.com/connected. That's trynom, TRYNOM, trynom.com/connected for 50% off. Our thanks to Nom Nom for their support of the show.
It's been a weird week this week. There's just a bunch of Apple products. It's like
In January.
it's November and January over here.
I think that's literally what this is.
I think this is what it is.
Yes.
Because John Gruber linked on during Fireball that the video that they posted to the Apple's website had 2022 in the URL.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is obvious. Like this stuff was probably meant to be done at a certain point. They just couldn't make it happen. The end of last year ended up being a bit of a disaster for manufacturing. But I really liked that we got a mini kind of keynote for this, like a 20-minute, well-produced, could have been in the middle of a keynote video. My own personal expectation is this was a 20-minute part of a keynote video. That's what I actually think this was personally, but whatever. It's probably not that unique of a take. It was presented by future CEO John Ternus. I was a big fan. I liked that we had this video because it kind of made it that everybody got the information rather than just people that got briefings or whatever. Like, we all could share in this info outside of newsroom posts or whatever, right? It was like, here is everything. And I thought that was really great. Like, I liked the video a lot. I found it very informative. And I also could understand why that, like, if this is all they could release now, it was not worth having an event, right? But this is so much better than just here's 3 posts on the Apple Newsroom site, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the video was cool because it had, and Apple's done this before, but it had a bunch of creators and like, including our friend Austin, which like, I sort of screamed. I was like, hey guys, it's Austin. Very reminiscent of, I think, what could have been part of a bigger keynote. Like, you add this with today's announcement of the HomePod, and you throw in some Apple Watch saved my life, as someone in our Discord said yesterday, and a retail update. It's like, you can see the shape that this event was supposed to be before it got sliced up. And I mean, who knows why it got delayed, but it is definitely interesting to see kind of how it rolled out. And I can't imagine this was the original plan.
So we got a bunch of things, right? We got new M2 chips, so the Pro and Max chips. We got Mac Mini, and we got the MacBook Pro. I would like to start talking about the M2 Pro and Max chips specifically. Because I don't know what you guys were expecting for these chips, but they have exceeded my expectation, because I feel like M1 to M2 wasn't huge differences, right? It was pretty small, actually, the difference between the M1 and the M2 chips.
Right.
It added like the video encoding thing, right? If I'm remembering correctly, like into the system on a chip.
Yeah.
But from a power and performance standpoint, not a huge difference. But the M2 Pro and Max are between 20 and 40% faster, like for like, to the M1 Pro and Max. So like 20% greater CPU, 30% greater GPU, 40% faster neural. And the M2 Max specifically allows for 96 gigabytes of RAM in the MacBook Pro, which couldn't happen before.
This is awesome.
I'm blown away by this. And
Me too.
I'm very surprised, because it's showing that the base chip does not dictate the performance of the higher level chips, which is what I'd assumed would be the case. And it also makes me wonder, well, is it always going to be like this? Like, will the M3 be 20% faster CPU and 30% faster GPU than the M2 Pro? Like, what is... I've felt like the M2, like the standard M2, told the story going forward, right? The M1s were just hugely more powerful than Intel, and then the M2 would be like smaller, kind of like what the Intel chips would be like every year or two, right? Smaller performance increases. But these are huge performance increases. And like, it's not just the percentage, there's then like 20 to 40% faster performance in a bunch of applications compared to the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips. It's wild.
The number of like cores from the M1 Pro to the M2 Pro, it went up a little bit. And same thing on the GPU side. And those cores are better because they're based on the M2. And I was surprised too. I kind of thought that, if you took a graph of like the M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, and then you graphed the M2 Pro, and M2 Max, they'd basically be parallel lines. And that's not what we got. And that's exciting. I think if you're disappointed in this in terms of like performance, I have two thoughts on that. One, I think they've done a better job than we expected. But secondly, it was always going to be this way, right? Like the jump from Intel to Apple Silicon was a one-time, hair blown back kind of thing. It was blow away, as Apple may say. And it was always going to settle down to something a bit more pedestrian as they got into the rhythm of these releases. And I feel like they've exceeded that bar. But even if they had met that bar, I think it would have been fine. The same thing happened when they switched from PowerPC to Intel, right? Like the MacBook Pro is 4 to 5 times faster than the PowerBook. well, the second MacBook Pro wasn't 4 to 5 times faster than the first one, right? Like this is how these things work. I don't think if you have an M1 Pro or M1 Max machine in your life, I don't think you've got to upgrade to this unless you're one of those people that really is living at the edge of what your hardware can do. I think this is a great opportunity to move to Apple Silicon if you haven't already, but very exciting nonetheless. And I think that if this is an 18-month cycle, which is about where these things have landed, roughly, I think that's pretty good. And you know, the cadence of Apple Silicon is still a bit unknown because this does seem like it happened later than Apple wanted. And 2 plot points on a graph aren't enough to call a pattern yet. But I am excited about the future. If they can keep this up and they keep the cadence pretty regular, I think it's going to be really successful.
So Morag Fire in the live chat in the Discord is saying that the Pro Max got an additional 2 efficiency cores. The GPU got 3 and 6 cores respectively from Pro and Max.
Okay.
But still, the CPU performance being 20% higher is like, I mean, these are just bigger jumps than I expected them to be. And so the M1 Pro and M1 Max MacBook Pro, that came out in 2021, like fall 2021, right?
Yeah, it was October. I think it was October 21.
I think it was October, it was kind of around that time. So I expect this was supposed to be a 12-month-ish.
Yeah.
You know, or it's closer to 12 months than it is to 18 months, it feels like, in what it would have expected to have been. So, again, that just surprises me. They're going to do it every year? You get these kinds of gains every year? I don't know, but I'm surprised about the year-over-year performance.
Yeah, and it wasn't just... and the MacBook Pro is not just system-on-a-chip stuff. And so they also got HDMI 2.1 for the first time. I think the first time in a Mac, period. And you can now drive up to an 8K display, and you can have other displays at a higher frame rate. That was something that was a little surprising last time around, that it was only HDMI 2.0. This time, I think they had to do it. Like, 2.1 has been out a while. It's becoming standardized on a bunch of other stuff. So I'm glad they were able to move to that. And we also got...
Do you think that could be for a ProMotion Studio display?
It could be. I had that thought. Because, 2.1 can push some pixels, man. It really can. So
Yep.
I think it's possible that they are leading up to this, and doing it over HDMI instead of Thunderbolt would be really interesting. So, because they collapsed, right, years ago, all their stuff into Thunderbolt, and now the HDMI port back, it gives them flexibility they didn't necessarily have just over the Thunderbolt bus, and I think that's really interesting to keep an eye on.
I don't know what Thunderbolt can push in terms of frame rate.
I think a lot of it has to do... I'm a little out of my depth here, but I think a lot of it has to do with when you adapt out to HDMI, I think you get a hit. And like basically, other than Apple, there's very few people out there doing true Thunderbolt displays out in the rest of the market. There's stuff that's USB-C, but not necessarily Thunderbolt. And I think you need the additional bandwidth.
I was going to say, most of them are going to do DisplayPort over USB-C. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thunderbolt 4, not sure how many pixels.
Thunderbolt 4 can do up to 240 frames.
Okay. Nice. All right.
So
but most of the other displays, they were doing DisplayPort over USB-C, and that's definitely not 240.
Yeah, but this would give you, as you say, Stephen, if we can remove my weird speculation about Studio Display, you could get a higher frame rate display, as you guys are talking about, and plug it into the HDMI port, right? And then you'd have a much better experience, I would expect. And
one that's much more, for lack of a better word, open, right? Like HDMI can drive almost anything. So it is it's exciting there. And we also got Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.3. And I know, Federico, you've been talking about, the Wi-Fi in the place that you moved, and maybe what you want to do with that. And 6E
I went with Wi-Fi 6 instead of... I went with 6 instead of 6E because that seemed a little unnecessary.
The 6E Eros are so expensive.
That's the other thing.
I went... Exactly. It's like, I probably don't need this fancier 6E stuff. I just went with the Eros that have the regular Wi-Fi 6. And they've been excellent. But yeah, this is. I mean, it's nice that the future proofing with having 6E, which I guess in 18 months it's gonna be more. I don't want to say standard, but it's gonna be more popular for sure. So it's nice to have.
The biggest news, though, color matched MagSafe cables in the box. The MacBook Air has this, and now the Pro gets it.
True.
Yep, I got a beautiful midnight cable.
Ooh, I bet that's nice.
Makes sense. It's a beautiful cable. Yeah, it's really nice. I wish the power brick was that color too, though, because like it just goes into the white brick, which just isn't as fun for me. But I like the color matching. I genuinely, I think the biggest news is 22 hours of battery life.
Yeah, that's on the 16-inch with, I think it's like the biggest battery you can put on a plane in the US.
Right.
That's wild to me. And part of that, I think probably is tied to those additional efficiency cores where macOS and this hardware really work together to do as much as it can on the efficiency cores. Now, if you push it, it has no problem lighting up the performance cores. It's not like it's begrudgingly going over there and turning those on. But background tasks, the stuff we do every day, right? It can run on those efficiency cores. And 22 hours of battery life is out. I mean, it's astonishing to me. And, I've got the 14-inch M1 Pro. Mary uses it. I have the M2 Air. Their battery life is great, but this seems really cool. And I think it's an hour or two more than the previous one, but it's a wild number.
It's 18 on the 14-inch, which is still bananas good.
Yeah.
I mean, and that stat is like Apple TV app movie playback. So like, you're grading it on a curve depending on what you're actually doing with the thing. But the fact that it can get 22 hours is wild. That's just an obscene amount of battery life.
Yeah, you can watch the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy back to back, and
Great.
you still don't have battery in your computer.
How many Star Wars can you watch?
I don't know how
All
many
of them,
of them
probably?
did they make.
Like
They
15?
Many.
made more.
Federico.
They recently made more, right?
Yeah, maybe we'll
Yeah,
call
like
it
it's a-
Andor, which is really good.
And or or.
No,
Yeah.
the guy's name is Andor.
Ah, okay. It's like Federico and or Ticci. Like
Every
like,
time recently I have said something and or something, I hear Andor, the guy instead in my coming up.
And
with
do you see the season 3 trailer for The Mandalorian?
Mandalorian? So good.
I
am so
hype.
excited.
Yes.
Yes.
It's going to be lit,
Federico, have
as
you
the kids say.
watched Last of Us yet? Have you watched Last of Us, Federico?
Not yet, but I think I'm gonna start it tonight
I
because
think so. I think I'm going to start this week too.
I have my sweet HBO Max subscription with my VPN and everything because they do it in Italy, but I don't want to see the Italian version.
I wish I could get HBO Max.
Just sign up.
I get
use
it
the
with
app.
another service. Like I can get the the
okay.
show with like a service called Now TV here. So I can
Oh
get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But I would prefer to just have HBO Max. But
Mhm.
Okay. So both
I
of
would need True John to sign up for me or something. Like I tried with like I can't sign up. They won't accept my card. I don't have
Yeah.
one of these.
Oh, I did this all
American credit
myself.
cards.
I have my fake US App Store account, and you
Oh,
can
you're
sign
doing
up
it
for
through
HBO
that.
Max from. Yeah, because
Oh, that's
it's
clever.
easier. You do it through that, and then as long as you connect via VPN, you don't need to create like a separate HBO account like on a website. You just do it through the
While
App
we're
Store.
in this like these nests of weird things, talking about App Store accounts, why can't I use Apple Pay on the Mac App Store?
You can't.
Wait, does
No.
it not offer it?
You cannot use Apple Pay on the Mac App Store.
I cannot remember the last time I bought something from the Mac App Store.
Same.
I wanted to buy something today, and I didn't want to put it on my personal card. I wanted to put it on my business card, so I ended up not buying it. It's like, don't know what to do now.
Got him.
They probably forgot to do it. Like maybe it's as simple as that.
No idea. I have no idea. I'm having so many problems with like since we moved with billing stuff with Apple. So like every receipt that I get has my old address. I have changed it in every conceivable place to the new address. Like I can't find my old address anywhere in any Apple ID, anything anywhere, but it still keeps sending all my subscription things to my old it's like billed to my old address.
You
I
gotta
just don't know
email.
what to do about it.
You got to email Eddie. He can fix it for you.
It's like calling it, stop writing blog posts, fix my email.
He
fix
did write
my
a blog
home address.
post. It was wild.
Yeah, stop doing that. Fix my address instead.
He's
Come on,
he's a man of the times, right? No one's on Twitter anymore. People are blogging again. Eddie wants a piece of that.
you think
Yeah.
that was him blogging?
There's gonna be a mastodon soon enough.
He was
Pterodactyl.
He was floating in his pool, and he had a MacBook, the old 12-inch MacBook, because that's his favorite. He was typing away.
Oh.
Don't think about
It's like,
too
yeah,
hard
I-
about my envisioning of that in my mind.
It's nice.
No,
though.
I'm
I like
thinking.
it.
I'm obsessed now with that thought.
Can we talk about the Mac Mini?
Please, please.
They did it. They did the thing.
They did it. It was
Kind
so,
of, though.
It was so weird that the M1 Pro only showed up in the MacBook Pro last year or 2 years ago. And the Mac Mini, meanwhile, had the base M1. And then the Intel version from 2018 was still for sale until this week. And it seemed like such an obvious hole in the lineup. And I don't know why they never put the M1 Pro in the Mac Mini, but they've done it this time. So you can get an M2 or an M2 Pro. That means you can spend anywhere from $599 up to like $6,000 on a Mac Mini. Like it's all the options on the M2 Pro. And I think something that's actually kind of important here is that you can now get a Mac Mini with more than 2 terabytes of internal storage space, because the M1 and M2 have lower storage capacities. The M2 Pro goes up to 8 terabytes. And so if you're using a Mac Mini and need a bunch of storage or just a bunch of power, now you can do this. And it kind of slots in between the basic Mac Mini and then the Mac Studio above it.
The $599 starting point is just incredible
Yeah.
because this base model machine is still more powerful than most people will ever need.
Yeah.
Right? Like in the conceivable future for them, right? Mm-hmm. Like 8-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage for $600. That is a great deal. It's a great deal.
The
right?
storage is
And
a
it's
little bit...
$500 for education. That's awesome. So good.
Yeah, the storage is a little bit of a bummer,
Yeah, but just buy a hard drive and stick it out the back. You know,
I guess
like
so.
it's I think for $600, like that is so good. I think that is so good. Is it cheaper than the Intel machine? I think it is.
it is.
I think so.
Yeah, because the Mac
Can
Mini...
you imagine that? They put the price down. What is going on?
Yeah, the Mac Mini started life as like the cheap Mac, or I think it was the first one was $499, and then it crept up over time, and they haven't gone back to that $499 price point, but $599 is pretty close. And in this era of inflation, I guess maybe it's as close as they could get. But I feel like with this one they've kind of brought the Mac Mini full circle, where it's now by far the most inexpensive Mac you can buy. But also, if you need a beefier one, you can, crank it up. And that is what was so cool about the last Intel one, that 2018 Space Gray one, because you could just throw all sorts of cores and memory and storage at that thing. And yeah, the price went up. But if you needed a Mac Mini with some real horsepower, that was really kind of the first time you could do that, because they had kind of neutered the Mac Mini before, making it just dual core. And so now they've kind of stayed with that pattern in the new Apple Silicon era, and I think it's great. I think a lot of people have been waiting for this, especially the M2 Pro, and my guess is the M2 Pro one will sell better than the base one, even though it starts at $1299. It's a big price jump. I think that a lot of people want a Mac Mini that has a bit more horsepower than the base model. So you got options now, which is cool.
It's a shame that they didn't do anything to the design.
I know. It's been the same for like a
even
decade.
have the colors. Like they used to have the dark one, right? They don't have that. It's just silver. It's all silver.
Yeah.
Would have been nice.
Victor points out, inflation adjusted, the original Mac Mini would cost $770.
It's a deal then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's a deal.
I'm thinking about this machine. I just got a refurbished Mac Mini with the M1 like a couple of months ago. In hindsight, I probably should have waited. Maybe I don't know. Still, I'm thinking about this. I don't know. Maybe I could. I mean, realistically, this is a machine that I should use like twice a week just for podcasting. I don't want to do anything else on macOS.
You're probably good at what you got.
I'm probably good with what I got. You know, realistically speaking, I think the next version of macOS is gonna run just fine on it.
Yeah.
And it's been working just fine to handle like my Room music library always on in the background, connected to a Thunderbolt drive on my local network. I am going to set up the did I release this information publicly on the show? I got Michael to send me an HD what's it called, HD home run
HD home
TV
run.
Oh,
tuner
yeah.
from the UK.
I can't
Like
remember if
the-
we spoke about this on the Pro Show or not, but yeah, I bought a HD home run. It came in a really nondescript box, and then I mailed it to Federico.
Yeah. So now I'm gonna set it up, and so that I can set up live TV in the office where I work via this TV tuner. They're super nice. But yeah, I think I'm probably fine with the M1 Mac Mini. I don't think I need like I'm really that M2 Pro machine. Like it's super cool looking in terms of the specs, and like it's still very, very compact.
Yeah. And you get 4 Thunderbolt ports, which is more than you've got.
But I don't really need it. That's the thing. Like even with the 4 Thunderbolt ports, which I'm super happy to see, I still don't need it, which is too bad. You know, it turns out when you write and when you edit, you don't need to be too fancy. So maybe I should be a video creator.
Maybe you should. You get like 6 8K displays and run, 27 streams of 8K or whatever nonsense they usually throw out there.
Maybe I should. Maybe I should.
You could
have done
transfer
that.
your data at 40 gigabits a second with Thunderbolt 4.
Imagine that.
You know what I mean?
So fast.
Think about the
Yeah.
bit rate.
You could do multiple streams, it says, of 4K and 8K ProRes video in Final Cut Pro. Do you want to do that?
Okay. You don't need. Why are you doing like a sales pitch right
I
now?
don't know. You said you wanted to be a video creator. I'm trying to encourage you on your
I'm
your
just
dreams.
thinking out loud. Okay. All right.
Gonna be a vlogger.
I'll tell you what I'm really intrigued about. I don't know how Stephen will feel about this. I can't wait to see the benchmarking between the M2 Pro Mini and the M1 Pro Studio.
Interesting.
Yeah, which Mac Studio did I get? Oh, the Studio is Max and Ultra, right?
Okay.
So that not the Pro, because the Pro only ended up in the
but still.
laptops. So my Mac Studio is the M1 Max. It may still hold off the Mac Mini, but probably not by much.
We'll see, right?
We'll see.
I'm just intrigued. Like, how close will it get? Because I just think it will be funny, considering the size difference of the two of them. You know, all the holes you got in the back of your machine.
There's a lot of holes.
There's a lot of holes.
A lot of holes. I do wonder about noise on the M2 Pro. I guess we'll see how that goes. So Federico, you talked about you and your Mac Mini. What about you, Mike? Are you
New home to me?
new home? New you? Interested in a
New home, new mic, new
yes,
Mac.
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
The what I have, so I've been running now for many months this like 2 laptop life that I have, right? Where I bought the MacBook Pro, the 14-inch MacBook Pro, because I was really excited about it, and I was running my iMac, and then I got even more excited about the MacBook Air. So then got the MacBook Air. I used the MacBook Air as my daily machine, and then the M1 Pro MacBook Pro is just sitting here docked to a couple of displays all the time. And so I feel pretty confident now that for me, it will be laptop and desktop, but the Mini is not what I want. This M1 Pro is fine. I at this point, I'm actually keen on seeing if Apple do a bigger iMac. With a really nice display.
I think you're going to be waiting a long time for that.
Yeah, but I have a very powerful M1 Pro MacBook Pro sitting here doing the job for the time. Like I don't, for me, like I don't have any desire to change to anything else right now. So I'm just gonna stick with this. Like if they do a bigger iMac, that might be really interesting. Outside of that, I have no desire. I really like having my main computer be a laptop that I can plug into a display. Like that works really nicely for me, because my main desk is nowhere near my home, right? So
Right.
like, I like having a laptop for my main machine, But the MacBook Pro as acting as a desktop is not a thing that I need. It's just because I have this machine and it's super powerful. So it is best used in this configuration. But ultimately, I'm realizing, again, it's like what I want is some kind of desktop machine, most likely. But there isn't a... Apple don't currently have a product where I'm like, that's what I want. Like, this Mini is really nice, but like, I don't feel like I particularly want that more than the laptop that I've got right here. So I'm not going to make any moves for a while. I want to see what the rest of this year holds, because, you know, I want to say, will they do a nice display? What could that mean? Like, will they do anything to a bigger iMac? Who knows? But yeah, I don't think we're going to get a bigger iMac this year, so maybe I'll just stick with this for a few years.
I actually kind of think the M2 Mac Mini, it makes me feel like that big iMac may not come ever. That maybe they're content with, okay, we got a couple of different desktops. We have the studio display. Maybe they're going to have more displays in the future, and that sort of optionality is enough in their mind. I hope not. I think the big iMac's an important machine. I think a lot of people really like it, but I think Apple is maybe de-emphasizing it.
So like if they do a bigger iMac, so many Macs. Like the Mac Studio threw a spanner in the works of everything.
It did.
We still have a Mac Pro to come.
I know. That's just hanging out there in John Turnus's, secret lab next to the weight machine, probably. Again, if you have an M1 Pro or Max, I don't think you got to go out and replace it. But I think if you were hanging on to an Intel Mac, Apple continues to move the ball forward in Apple Silicon, and these new machines look really, really impressive.
But you say that, I was talking to an unnamed developer friend of ours,
James.
I'm not going to say who it was. They currently have an M1 Max MacBook Pro, and they are immediately going to upgrade because Xcode is like 20 to 30% faster, I think it was.
That actually sounds like Underscore. So that sounds like.
Look, I'm not going to say who it was. You said it twice, and both times I said I'm not going to say, because that's up to them to spill the beans, right? But I just thought that was really interesting. It's like, if that's your work, like that is a meaningful time difference. Like, so I'm not saying people should upgrade, but there are reasons that someone might want to upgrade even from the previous year's machine, which is not what I was expecting at all.
Anytime there's a announcement like this, I sort of reconsider my setup. I'm not changing anything, but...
Really? Do you?
I know.
No, that was shocking.
Because for a long time, I've been desktop and notebook. So I've got the Mac Studio and I have the MacBook Air. But there are times where I think, could I go back to like one powerful, like really nice, maybe a 14-inch MacBook Pro, use it at my desk, and then when I need to take it somewhere, I have all of my stuff with me. I don't think I want to do that. But partially because I really love the M2 MacBook Air. Like, it is, I think, Mike, you've said this too, it's one of my favorite Macs ever made. Like, there's just something about the M2 Air that feels really special. And I've been using it a lot over the last couple of weeks because I've been doing some stuff outside the office, away from my desk. And it's so good. Like, it's light, it's small, it's powerful. So I don't know. I think if you are a laptop as a desktop person, like Mike said, we got a lot of good choices. This episode of Connected is made possible by Electric. Turning a small business into an empire takes work, and you have to keep your ear to the ground for things that will help you take it to the next level. But this can be hard when your attention is pulled in different directions. That's the reality of being a business owner, of being a boss. The team over at Electric knows small businesses, maybe like yours, face these challenges. That's why they've solved this problem for you by operating as your IT department. So instead of spending time sorting through unused application licenses, setting up employee laptops, and answering never-ending IT questions from your team, you can focus on building your business. With Electric acting as your IT department, you can get back to what you're good at. Plus, you get a really cool IT platform to see and manage everything. Delegation is so important when you own a business. All three of us know that. All three of us have learned that over the years. And with Electric, you can delegate your IT task to the professionals so you can focus on what you need to focus on. And for Connected listeners, our dear passionate ones, Electric is offering a free pair of Beats Solo 3 headphones for taking a qualified meeting. Just go to electric.ai/connected. That's electric.ai/connected for a free pair of Beats Solo 3 headphones for scheduling a meeting. Our thanks to Electric for their support of the show.
So we go from a selection of products that are really great, meaningful updates, things that we were looking for, pushed in the directions we wanted. Let's now talk about the brand new HomePod.
It's the new HomePod, which is the old HomePod, kind of.
But the screen fell in.
Yeah, it uses the screen, I think, from the Mini, or bigger, but that sort of look. I was so surprised that these look the same. In fact, if you look at my blog post, I make a joke. I use the old photo. I'm like, oh, wrong one. Here's the new one.
good.
Like, they're
very
the
good.
same. I thought it would be I thought it was going to be like a HomePod, but bigger. Like in my mind, they're going to take the HomePod and scale it up in Photoshop, 200%. But it uses a very similar design. But guys, it's now white and midnight, not space gray. So I can't tell the difference in the photos.
Why is it white and midnight? What is wrong with this company? They don't make white anymore. They
No,
make Starlight.
Well,
why?
Because
Why?
then that HomePod would
Why?
look brown, right? Like you can't do a Starlight HomePod. Can you imagine? Like, so ours is in our kitchen, and we have a space gray one. It's my only of my 3 original HomePods that still work, and like. I didn't put a white one in there because I didn't want it to get dirty. And the Starlight is already off-white. It's like, that looks like someone spilled a bunch of almond butter all over it or something. So,
And also, like, maybe I need to see some images. That looks like the same color as it doesn't
know.
look like midnight. Midnight is like a blue color. These images don't look blue.
it
looks
looks like
black.
space gray
It's
again.
just black.
Yeah, it's so confusing. And I'm so disappointed that they didn't do the colors. The HomePod Mini colors outside of the iMac are the best colors Apple has right now. Like I've got 2 orange ones. I've got one on each side of my studio.
Yeah.
And they look so good. They're vibrant and they're fun. The HomePod should have been that. But this design is more or less reused. Now, the inside is mostly new, as we'll talk about, and in some ways worse than the previous one, actually. But the design is basically the same, except the top panel now looks like what's on the HomePod Mini, which is nicer than what's on the original HomePod, I think. Inside the new HomePod is the S7 system on a chip that came out in the Apple Watch Series 7, I guess like a year and a half ago. The original one used the A8, I think. And so moving it to the Apple Watch system on a chip, just like the HomePod Mini. But it means that it only has 802.11n wireless networking. The old one had 802.11 AC. And it's Bluetooth 5.0. So it is behind the rest of the products other than, I guess, the Apple Watch.
I haven't heard 802.11n in what feels like 12 years.
I know. And
What are they
it's fine on a watch. Like, who cares? And it's probably fine on the HomePod, too, but it's just kind of funny to me that it's a downgrade.
I mean, it's gotta be, right? Like, this is a streaming music device. If it's got to be okay, but it's still just strange.
It's also a HomeKit hub.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a minute. There's a lot of stuff that it does that apparently the HomePod Mini could also do. They just didn't turn it on. Just funny to me.
Yeah.
The price is $299. So the original HomePod 100 years ago was $349, and then when they didn't sell any of them, they cut it to $299. And a bunch of people bought them on sale even cheaper than that. Like I didn't pay even $299 for any of my HomePods. Like they were on sale at Target and Best Buy and Amazon all the time. I would have liked to see $249. I think for me, at least, the price, like, because the HomePod Mini is $99. I'm not sure this one, as good as they sound, is not worth the extra $200, but it's better than $349. So I guess there's that.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people would hear $200 difference in this. I haven't heard it yet, but
I mean,
it's a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard the old one, and the old one sounds good, but I don't think it's $200 better than the minis, especially if you're like me and you have a pair of minis. A pair of minis sound pretty dang good, and that's still, only 2/3 of the cost of one of these things. So, Federico, can you tell us about the sensors and like the smart home stuff that it's getting?
Yeah, so this one has this new built-in temperature and humidity sensors. So you can, you can measure your indoor like your indoor environment, like for how cold or hot it is and the humidity level, and you can connect that, of course, to HomeKit automations. So for example, if you have a HomeKit like a fan or heating system or a humidifier or something, you can put together an automation that when a certain temperature is reached, then of course something should happen. I am curious to see what happens here, because if memory serves, the Home app by Apple has historically been kind of weird when it comes to creating automations for sensor value thresholds. So this thing, like for example, if my humidity is between 50 and 60%, like this type of trigger has long been supported by the HomeKit framework, right? So the HomeKit API lets you do this. For many years though, it's never been possible to put together these automations based on thresholds of values in the Home app by Apple. You had to use something like Home Plus, which is a third-party app, to do this automation that is actually based on the native HomeKit framework. There just wasn't a native UI exposed in the Home app. Now, I haven't checked 16.3, but based on, which by the way, I meant to interrupt you before, Mike, but then you were going on about the Mac Mini, so I felt kind of bad. Yeah, you were talking about it, and it's like, yeah, just leave it.
Just doing your job on our podcast.
You were just going on about the Mac Mini. It's like, I'm being respectful. But breaking news, 16.3 release candidate is out for developers with official support for the second generation HomePod. So that's coming out. Anyway, I haven't checked 16.3 yet. I assume, based on what Apple is saying, that there will be better support for these types of things, given that they mentioned automations for temperature and humidity. So hopefully you will no longer need a third-party app if you want to do an automation based on a threshold of values from a HomeKit sensor. The other new smart home feature is this sound recognition functionality. Sound recognition has been a feature on the iPhone for a while. I think for the past couple of years, I want to say iOS 14 maybe. You've been able to set up these sound recognition features in the accessibility section of settings, and your iPhone could alert you if it detected something like a smoke alarm or a baby crying or a doorbell ringing. Incredible accessibility feature for someone who's deaf. And you can have your iPhone tell you, hey, look, this type of sound coming out of a device in your home. Incredible feature. Now this is also coming to the HomePod, and specifically Apple mentioned that the HomePod will be able to listen to alarms for smoke and carbon monoxide, and it will send you a notification directly to your phone. So instead of the phone doing the listening, the HomePod can do it too, but just for smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, which is cool.
I had to really think about this when I read the feature, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, the alarm lets me know the alarm's going. Like, I had to sit and really think about it, but I was like, oh, but maybe if I was out of the house. Like, I figured that, then I was like, like, I had to really think about it. I was like, well, the best alarm is the alarm. But, yeah.
In my studio, I've got a fire, like a smoke and carbon dioxide alarm that's compatible with Ring for that reason. So if I'm out of the house, if I'm gone, I'll know if the pod cabin's on fire. And likewise, our home security system has smoke alarms that, they would call me and say, hey, there's something going on. There is a peace of mind that brings, but you've had to have, a connected system before. And so I think this is actually low-key pretty cool that if you're out of the house and you have this set up, and hopefully it's easy and to set up, and I'm kind of hoping they prompt people to set it up, honestly, like when you open the Home app, it could be really a good thing for people.
Yeah, it's good because you don't have to buy new equipment.
Yeah, and hopefully everyone's got just the base at the least the basic smoke detector that beeps, and if they've tuned this well enough to hear it, that's a big deal.
Another new feature is this new confirmation tone. There's a new confirmation sound when Siri does something to control an accessory that is not like that doesn't show like a visible change. or maybe it's located in a different room than the HomePod. So, like for example, if you control your heater or something that doesn't have a visible change, like a light, there's a new confirmation sound. So it should be more clear than before whether a Siri request for a HomeKit accessory that doesn't show you immediately what it does has in fact performed what you asked.
You know what I want out of this, Federico, is I want this to work for lights that are not in the room the HomePod is in.
Well, they say or for accessories located in a different room.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I want. I want to be able to say, hey, turn off the dim light, and I'm in the bedroom. I can't see if the dim light's on or off, but I would like to know that it happened.
Well, all of this is better than the bedroom light has been turned on, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing for me here. Of like, if it just stops
the bedroom
shouting
light is
at
on.
me, yeah, like I don't need it. I don't.
Yeah.
The sound is good.
And finally, the ambient sounds feature, which again has been around for a while. Again, past couple of years. They have their own little like white noise feature going in iOS and iPadOS and the HomePod. Those ocean, rain sounds, wind sounds, all that kind of stuff. They have been remastered. So there should be better, higher quality ambient sounds. And apparently, the automation story goes on here as well, because you will be able to add these sounds to an HomeKit automation, a scene, or an alarm that you set on the HomePod. So, better rain for your automations.
It's like Automation April over here. You know what I mean?
It's like, you know what they're doing? Yeah, Automation April. You know, I made an automation that plays the sound of a thunderstorm when I open the door. It's, you know, just spitballing here.
Luckily, the HomePod Mini is going to be getting these features with iOS 16.3.
Yeah, this is the plot twist here. The HomePod Mini.
Because I was going to be super mad if this didn't happen. Because like none of this, right, is like, especially like the sound recognition thing. Like none of this seems like it requires a brand new HomePod at $300 to do. Especially when we know the Mini has had this sensor in it for its entire lifetime.
It's been locked away in there, a little temperature humidity sensor, doing nothing, and it looks like iOS 16.3 will enable it, which means you now have, you know, not in addition to all the hopefully better automation stuff, you just have a status of like any room you have a HomePod Mini in, you know the temperature and humidity. So for me, in my office, I have like, I even forget who makes it. I bought it a long time ago. It's a HomeKit enabled. It's a little box, and it just sits on the bookshelf, and it has a little like screen that tells me the temperature and humidity, and it shows up in HomeKit. Well, you know, if that thing kicks it, then I've got HomePod Minis that can do it too, which is cool.
I have some real-time follow-up, I guess. I don't know. From 9 to 5 Mac, fan of the show, Chance Miller, reporting that the original HomePod just got its own release candidate for 16.3. And get this, a bunch of these features are also coming to the original HomePod.
Good.
So,
they
there's
put a temperature sensor in there. How did they do it?
Turns out it was always there. No, it doesn't have that, but you will get the confirmation tone stuff that we just spoke about. So it'll play this new sound when controlling accessories that doesn't show a visible change or are in a different room. And apparently, you will be able to set up recurring automations via your voice. So you will be able to say, hey assistant, every time I open the door, turn off the lights or something like that.
iOS 16.3 brings iCloud advanced data protection features to worldwide.
Nice.
That's
Okay.
the best piece of news.
Okay.
I'm so excited about that.
So now I am more
rough.
protected than before.
I don't understand this HomePod. I don't get it.
I mean, the thing is, I think
I don't get it.
obviously the reason why they pulled originally is that they really wanted to have a device that was going to be Matter compatible. This one is Matter compatible. Like it's what is the proper terminology when you are a Matter controller. Right? So I think they really wanted to have a new one with proper official Matter integration. This one does it.
I'm not sure why the original couldn't be though.
I am not sure either. Or maybe they really wanted to have the temperature sensors. I do not know. The thing that strikes me as a little bit confusing is So this is the same. This product looks the same as it did 5 years ago when the first one came out in 2018, and it costs the same. Despite plenty of competition that we have in this space. I mean, I know I've done the research lately. The thing is, for the longest time, you could have said, well, but the HomePod sounds better. There are some differences in the internals with the new one. We did a bit of comparisons for the Mac Stories article. This one has fewer tweeters compared to the original HomePod. Even though it looks the same, it's got 5 tweeters inside instead of 7. And
everyone's leaving Twitter. Fewer tweeters.
I know, right? It's tweeting less. And the shape of those speakers is also different, which Quinn Nelson pointed out on Mastodon today. So I'm definitely interested in knowing how this sounds compared to the first one. And it just feels a bit it just feels a bit uninspired. That's all.
Yeah.
Like, if this is the end result, like it's the same with the new sensor inside and actually fewer components for sound, why the long wait? I mean, I don't know. We'll never know, right? There's never going to be someone who comes on the show and be like, hey, I'm from Apple. Actually, let me tell you why this came out now.
I don't understand why this needs to exist in this form when the HomePod Mini exists.
In this form. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Why? Obviously, a HomePod needs to exist. But I don't know. We were expecting more exciting things, I think. We were expecting... are you?
At some point in the future, I think it will be vastly different to this.
Like a display, MagSafe integration of some sort.
Who knows? But like like I've always wanted, is like a soundbar with a camera in it, right? Like they do like the whole thing. So I found a support article, by the way. The original HomePod can be set up as a home hub, which is a Matter controller, but it doesn't have a Thread radio in it, so it can't do Thread-enabled Matter accessory stuff. So it's like yes and no. If you want a home hub and you want your HomePod to be a home hub and you want the best Matter experience, you would want the new one or the Mini. I don't know. I don't get it. I find this whole thing pretty disappointing, to be honest.
So are you going to buy one?
No, I'm all in on Sonos, baby. No one's taking me away from that. I have 2 original HomePods. I'm not replacing those with these. I'm not going £600 into this for when I really don't think that I won't get any benefit out of any of this. Like what I have thought of doing and what I probably will do in the future for smart home control is just get a couple of HomePod Minis and use them just as smart home controlling like audio things. That's all I would really want it for. I wouldn't want to go to the level of buying these big ones and having them as the TV speakers anymore. I think I'm going to go with a sound bar in the future for that, because I think it would just be better in the space that we have now. But yeah, so once everything's done, then I'll probably get a HomePod Mini, like put one upstairs, one downstairs. But that's as far as I would go. This product is not interesting to me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about this for like 15 seconds. I was like, hey, do I want a new HomePod? And then I said for 15 seconds. And then I said, no, I don't need one. Because really, they could have made this more exciting. Here's the thing. There's some things that I really need at this point, which is obviously Matter support. We get that. Pretty good audio quality. Of course, even if it sounds worse than the original HomePod, it's still going to sound good, I think.
It sounds great.
But
it's really good. The HomePod sounds great.
And, of course, the other feature, multilingual Siri. And it doesn't have it. So it doesn't have the features that I need. And it doesn't have the features that I want. The features that I wanted was like a new design, maybe some kind of display. We talked about having some kind of docking station for your phone. I think other companies are doing more exciting things on this front. And they have more variety, they have more choice. And so it doesn't have the features that I need. It doesn't have the things that I want. Why would I get it? You know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's pretty underwhelmed, I think is a good word to describe this.
I feel the same way. I think if our big one in the kitchen died, I would consider this because the way our house is laid out, that's pretty central and it's nice to have good music in there. But I'm not going to replace the HomePod minis in my office or the HomePod mini in our bedroom with this. I'm really happy with the mini, especially for the money. And this is out there if you want it. And I think a pair of them, using eARC and all that stuff would be cool. But I don't have a place where it fits, especially at its price point. This episode of Connected is made possible by Capital One. Have you ever hit a technical snafu while shopping online? Has filling out payment fields given you a headache? Has your mobile banking app been down when you really wanted to use it? Capital One believes everyone deserves better banking. This means easier access to their money and more security. That's why Capital One is investing in machine learning. Machine learning allows Capital One to do things like fight fraud with random forests, with models that quickly detect suspicious activity and make it easier to alert federal investigators. And they help identify mobile app outages, why they happen. They use causal models for that. And this means that keeping banking mobile app up and running, that's easier. That stuff doesn't happen by accident. Engineers need the information so they can remedy the problems. Capital One also speeds up online shopping with machine learning at the edge. They make shopping with virtual card numbers smoother and more secure. This technology is based on logistic regression models and running inference in the browser. It identifies payment fields, which helps make using virtual card numbers easier and faster. The potential of machine learning is so big. See how Capital One is using machine learning to create the future of banking. Search machine learning at Capital One or check out the link in the show notes. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
So I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on third-party Twitter apps going away. Me and Jason spoke about it a bunch on Upgrade, but I think this is something that we probably all have some very complex emotions over. And also now the Twitter developer account has confirmed in essence that it, what they have done was purposeful, even though it doesn't make any sense, by saying that they are, enforcing their long-standing rules for the third-party API. My thought was that the rule of the third-party API is that it doesn't work, right? Like that's the only rule that they are standing by. We are enforcing our long-standing API rules. That's what they're saying, which is just ridiculous, the whole thing. And so I just wanted to see what you guys felt about it. Like, do you have any simple or complex emotions about Twitter apps going away?
Obviously, I'm personally sad and nostalgic. I mean, this is, I think, the most common feeling to have about these apps. If you've been around in our community for a while and you've been doing this for how long we've been doing this, you know that they're just apps, but in many ways they also represent, I think, a period of our lives when, Twitter was more fun and we all got to know each other, or we were in the process of getting to know one another. I mean, I'm pretty sure that our first private interaction was a DM on Twitter using one of these apps.
Yep.
And so it's not just about the apps. I mean, sure, the apps were great, but it was about really that period of our lives.
This show exists because of a Twitter DM.
Exactly. So they're just apps.
I DM'd Federico to ask him if he wanted to be a part of this show that me and Steven wanted to make.
Right. But they have they're apps that have real personal consequences in a good way. Like they led to careers and connections and all of that. And I think also, I don't know, they take me back to a time when, I know that the expression, you don't like this one, Mike, but, Twitter apps being a UI playground, it's overused, and we've heard it before.
I like it. I don't like when these things then become like memes.
I know.
When
The general public appropriates these expressions and they keep using them over and over and over.
Beautiful turn of phrase that then just everybody used. But I agree with that sentiment completely. Like I was just thinking about it, right? Like pull to refresh came from a Twitter app. Like like so many of these Twitter apps, like Tweetbot, Twitterific, the ones now, they like revolutionized UI design.
The word tweet came from a third-party app.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I just mean like the overall effect on all applications.
Yeah.
So much of it came from just Twitter apps.
100%.
Yes. So there's that personal aspect of like, yeah, man, good times. Then there is of course the fact that I think in our scene, in our little corner of the internet, a lot of things are changing right now. It feels like we're living, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but at least I feel like we're going through this transitional phase with Twitter and Mastodon, Apple coming out with a new platform. It just feels like it's another of those changes that in this tech niche of the internet we are witnessing right now. It's not, I don't know, at least for me, it doesn't feel like a stable period. It feels like it's a period of change, and it's exciting, right? But it requires bandwidth, and it requires focus, and it requires time to adapt. And Twitter apps going away is another of those changes to add to the list. And lastly, of course, the third thing I'll point out is that this is yet another case of a guy with no taste, right? And with no decency, with no class, really. I think it all comes down to that. Elon Musk is a man with no class, no elegance. He's just a buffoon with money, throwing that money around, thinking he's smart enough to outsmart everybody else, when in fact he's just a rude boy with a ton of money, maybe less than before, actually.
A lot less.
Just making a lot less than before. Just making silly decisions with no elegance and no taste, no respect for what came before, which is unsurprising. I mean, we all sort of knew this was going to happen. This is exactly what we know. What some of us said, oh, he's going to do this for sure. Some people were like, no, I actually think Elon Musk is good for a company. I mean, yeah, we all see how this is turning out. It's just it's another example of a guy with money, just breaking his new toy because it's not working the way he thought it was going to work. And so I am honestly sad for those developers. I mean, imagine being a developer, imagine the Tapbots folks. They have annual renewals coming up for Tweetbot. And of course, we all knew that, building a business on top of a foundation as shaky as the Twitter API was always going to have an element of risk, a high element of risk.
You had to be ready for this, something like this happening at some point.
You had to be ready. But at the very least, give them the decency of a heads up of like, just anything but this. And then you try to explain yourself with a super short tweet in which you claim that you're just applying the existing, what did they say, guidelines, whatever?
API rules or...
rules? Sure. Twitter is in free fall at the moment in all regards. The product, the service, the community, the financial aspect of the company. And it just feels sad to watch. I feel sad for those developers, and I hope that they can find a sustainable business elsewhere. Of course, I'm thinking back. I was taking a look at some of my old posts from Mac Stories. That era of 2009, 2010, with those screenshots of Tweetbot and Tweetbot in 2011, but those screenshots of Twitterrific and all those Twitter clients. Good times, and I'm glad that I have the screenshots. If only for historical purposes. Let me just say that now more than ever with these things, I understand why Steven likes to screenshot and archive everything. Yeah.
I saw a video a couple of days ago. I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes of someone doing a walkthrough. I think it might have been the official walkthrough video of the first version of Tweetbot. It's like, damn, that was an app. Like,
yeah, man.
That first version, just like,
was mind blowing.
It was very, very special. I'm not saying what the app is or is not now, but like back at that time, the UI and audio design was next level. It was super good stuff.
It was the first app I think I ever left the sound effects on for.
Yeah,
because it was like all these little bleeps and bloops and I mean, look, Twitterrific, like all of these did a good job. And Federico, I 100% agree with you. Torpedoing small businesses and their apps literally in the middle of the night and not saying anything to them. And then you have this like super aggressive but vague tweet about, oh, we're just enforcing the rules we've always had. Like Jason said on Upgrade, it's cowardly. It's completely inappropriate and immature. And I get from a business sense, like maybe why they want to do this. They're trying to get into advertising and make that work. But there were so many other ways they could have done it. And they took the cheap shortcut to just cutting them off. Didn't even do it completely, because there are some clients out there that still work. They just drew an arbitrary line. Anybody above that line in terms of users got cut off. And it's terrible. And I think for a lot of people in our community, it's yet another strike against Twitter's current leadership. And it just makes me sad, because it does mark the end of an era for these apps, right? And we mentioned Tweetbot's original design. Like these apps, Twitterfix started as like a Mac menu bar app way back in the day, and then it was when you could like jailbreak before the App Store. Twitterfix was there. Like these apps have marked huge moments in our collective history as a community, and they didn't get a proper goodbye. They just got shut off at night with no warning. These developers got caught off guard by it, and it just stinks. It really does, and it makes me sad.
I wanted to ask Mike, have you thought again about your plans for sort of your presence online, with the exception of your podcasts?
I mean, this doesn't make any difference right? Because I wasn't using these apps, right?
Right.
But obviously I've been thinking about it a lot. Like I'm talking about it a lot on various shows and stuff, and like trying to work out how things feel. Like right now, not being on any kind of, I don't even know what to call it, like Twitter-like social network. Like, is there a name? Is everyone in the Fediverse, have they given it a name yet? What is this type of social media? Is there a name for it? Like short form text social media? I just figured that if considering there are now so many competing services, that maybe there was some kind of like agreed upon name for what these kinds of things. Yeah, microblogging.
Yeah, maybe.
Says Mike in the Discord. Let's go with that, right? These microblogging services. I actually kind of, at the moment, like I'm enjoying my time away from it. It was a distraction for me in a lot of ways, and I'm liking not having that distraction. Like, it's actually been pretty good. I think at some point I will want to do something, but I don't know what. Like, the ability to be able to share some kind of, like, occasional observation somewhere, right? Like, that isn't a tweet. Sorry, that isn't on a show. The idea, though, of having a website, right, say, like, probably closer to Steven than you, Federico, right? It's like what the types of websites are, right? Because 512 is more personal than Mac Stories is. Is that fair to say? I mean, Mac Stories is multiple people, so
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So the idea of doing something like that right now, I don't have time for that. Like, I have my hands full building Cortex brand. Like, in the sense of like having something else that's not my podcast, like that's what that is. Like, I'm putting a lot of time into that. So like, the idea of even having a blog where people might expect me to post something every now and then, like that just feels terrifying to me right now, right? It's like some kind of expectation thing to exist. The feedback system that we have has completely replaced the only thing I felt like I was missing, which was the ability for listeners to be able to get in contact with me and tell me things about episodes. It's been a great success so far. I don't know if you agree, Stephen, but like I've been very happy with that tool.
Me too.
Because now people are sending me corrections to me, questions to me, like all that kind of stuff. It's brilliant. Love it. I think there's still an open question for me as if Twitter was useful in promoting things, but like I felt like the answer was no. I don't know the answer to that yet though, right? That's going to be something I'll work out down the line. So, maybe one day there is a Mike Hurley account on Mastodon that's effectively write only for me, like I don't necessarily read anything at all. Like, don't follow things or don't read replies or whatever, but is basically a bot. But to be honest, like, I don't even really know if that just feels inauthentic for me. So I'm kind of like, I'm either in or I'm out, and right now I'm out. Like, and I'm good with that for where I am right now. I know to a lot of people it's unsatisfying as an answer, but like, my non-use of Mastodon is not a judgment of your use of it, right? Like,
Right.
Like, that's not what this is. I'm not saying Mastodon is bad, but my usage of microblogging services got bad for me.
Yeah, I
And,
think
like,
that makes sense. Yeah.
I even maybe I'm gone forever, or I just need a long time away to reset habits, but I need that time away now, which is not a thing that I had done before. It's a thing that Stephen had done to great effect in the past many times, but this isn't something that I've done for any more than, like, I did it once as like a podcast experiment on Analog, right? Where it was like I was doing it for the experiment, right? But it was never like, well, I'm gone now. But like, this is like, I'm gone now, and I'm just seeing what that is feeling like. I really am, like, I'm super happy with the time that I chose to pack it in. Like, I feel like I got it just at the right moment. I feel like I wasn't too early, wasn't too late. It's this like beautiful sweet spot, like, for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm out, and then everything just, it was like the wall started crumbling down. Maybe what I'm saying is maybe I was the final piece of the puzzle. You know what I mean?
Could have been.
Yeah,
For
maybe.
everything
Could have been.
started really, really going bad.
Yeah, man, I feel a little bit differently about this because I have 512. I do think at some point I will explore Mastodon a little bit, but like Mike, right now I'm pretty happy without anything like this. Now I'm still checking mentions on a couple of accounts, like the show accounts and the network account, and I can just tell you on Twitter it's just completely dead. Like, there's nothing going on over there anymore.
I think they might be broken.
They could be broken.
Like, on at least one account, like, so, I'm only checking on the Cortex account at the moment because it's the only one I'm posting to. Like, I don't know how long that's going to last, but that was always a manual thing. There was no bot that posted to it.
Mm-hmm.
And the mentions that I sometimes have seen in like the all of it tab, or whatever they call it, and the mentions tab is just like the mentions cut off at some point in early January, but the old tab has new mentions in it. So like, something's broken somewhere for me. I don't know.
So like Mike, I am really happy with the feedback form, but I do miss seeing the conversations between other people to a degree. And that, I think at some point, I may end up checking in on Mastodon occasionally. But for now, I want a break. And, I've been off Twitter, I don't know how long. Time is a flat circle. But for now, I'm pretty okay with where I am. And that may change in the future, right? But I do think my sort of issue of like having a place to share things, I have that solved in a way that Mike maybe doesn't. And that is helping tide this over. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know long term. I think for me, it was an opportunity to kind of step back and consider how I use these things. And I have noticed like some days like substantially more time in my day and substantially less stress in my day. And I like those things. And one nice thing about the feedback tool is that if someone says something that I would want to debate, like, there's no way for me to do that. I mean, I could put it on a show and talk about it. I could copy and paste their email address out of our CMS and email them randomly, but that is not something I want to do. And so I feel like I wasn't arguing a lot on Twitter before. Years ago, I did a lot, and because I was young and foolish, and I grew out of that, thankfully. But not everyone has. And I feel like the feedback tool has dialed that down even more, and that's something that I didn't really consider when we were building the feedback tool, but it's been a nice side effect of it.
Mm-hmm. Federico, I'm sure you're having a great time on Mastodon. Like I expect you're enjoying it.
Oh yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. It's nice to have it. I actually think I have a bigger audience there than on Twitter. Even though the numbers are are smaller, But I know that it's all real active people who are actively using Mastodon right now, and it's been going super well as a way to just talk about stuff, share articles, answer questions from readers, and all of that. It's great.
Maybe you were shadow banned on Twitter.
Maybe I was. Maybe I was.
That was a joke, but in a serious note, like potentially there not being an algorithm might mean that people are seeing your content more as well, right? Like that could actually be a thing. So, I mean, I also, the impression I've gotten from other friends that are there is like there is what it sounds like to me is what Twitter used to sound like early on, where like people are just excited to be on Mastodon right now, and there's like a desire for content.
Yes.
So like there's just a lot more conversation happening because it's like a thing. When Ivory comes out, like I will download it and sign in and see what that app is like, because every screenshot I've seen, it's like it looks really pretty, and I just want to see what it's all about. I'm never around when there's open spots, right? It's just I never see it. But also it's like at this point I'll just wait. Like I don't need it now if I'm not going to use it anyway, right? So I'll just wait for it to come out, because I'm just intrigued, because it looks like Tapbots they're doing more on the design of that app than I was expecting them to do. Like what this doesn't feel like, you could correct me if I'm wrong, this doesn't feel like NetBot, which was just Tweetbot but with app.net and just different color.
No, it's more like you can tell that it's based on the foundation of Tweetbot, but it's going in its own direction.
And so I want to see what does like a brand new design from Tapbots in 2023 look like. I'm just intrigued about that. I'm also really intrigued to see whatever Icon Factory do. I really recommend people read Craig Hockenberry's beautiful blog post about this. And, his kind of like sign off was really encouraging to me, where he's like, hey, we might do something else. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on right now all over federated social media, and imagine if they can do something that was like Twitterific, but for all of this stuff, right? Like that influential, so I'm really excited about what this opportunity could hold for developers, because there was a reason that this all worked on Twitter before, and it wasn't because of Twitter. Like, it was the community being excited about a service and then adopting the applications of people that made them and, supporting those apps. And so, like, I hope that happens again, because that would be fantastic. But, I just need to work out what my place is in all of it. This was just a time for me to take a break,
Well, I think that does it for this week. If you want to find links to stuff we spoke about, including the form you should fill out to help Mike build the next season of the Quizzies, they're in your podcast player. They're also on the web at relay.fm/connected/433. When you're on the website, you can leave feedback. There's a submit feedback button there. You can fill out a little form, send us a note, a question, follow up, whatever you want. You can write a poem in there. That'd be nice to find.
I want some haikus. Let's get some haikus going. Although I don't think we have line breaks, but we'll work it out.
We don't currently have line breaks.
We'll work it out. Use slashes. We'll work it out.
It's on the list. You can find us elsewhere online. You can find Federico. He is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net. He's also the co-host of App Stories with our friend John Voorhees. Excellent podcast. I don't miss an episode. So go check out all of what Federico is up to over there.
Thank you.
You can find Mike on other shows here on Relay FM, and he's the co-founder of Cortex Brand. You can learn more about that at cortexmerch.com. You can find my writing at 512pixels.net, and I'm also the co-host of Mac Power Users here on the Relay FM podcast network. I'd like to thank our members. If you are a member, you get longer ad-free versions of the show each and every week. If that sounds good to you, or Discord access, or a cool newsletter, or awesome wallpapers, that stuff sounds exciting to you, you can join. There's some buttons on the Connected webpage. There's also a link in your show notes to join. It's just $5 a month. And thank you all who support the show directly.
On Connected Pro this week, I unveil a thrilling secret.
It was spicy. It's one for the ages. We'll leave it at that. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Nom Nom, Electric, and Capital One. And until next week, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Bye, y'all.